The sacrifice commences. 1. I announce, and I will complete my yasna. To Ahura Mazda, the Creator, the radiant and glorious, the greatest and best, the most beautiful, to our conceptions, the most firm, the wisest, and the one of all whose body is most perfect, who attains his ends the most infallibly because of his righteous order, to him who disposes our minds aright, who sends his joy-creating grace afar, who made us and has fashioned us, and who has nourished and protected us, who is the most bounteous spirit. 2. I announce, and I will complete my yasna to the good mind, and to righteousness the best, and to the sovereignty which is to be desired, and to piety the bountiful, and to the two, the universal weal and immortality, to the body of the kine, and to the kine's soul, and to the fire of Ahura Mazda, that one who, more than all bountiful immortals, has made most effort for our succor. 3. And I announce, and I will complete my yasna to the Astnya, the day lords of the ritual order, to the Havana, the holy, the lord of the ritual order, and I celebrate, and I will complete my yasna to Savanga and to Visya, the holy lords of the ritual order, and I announce, and will complete my yasna to Mithra of the wide pastures, of the thousand ears, and of the myriad eyes, the Yazad of the spoken name, and to Raman Havastra, for I announce, and will complete my yasna to Repithwina, the holy lord of the ritual order, and to Fradatchu, and to Zentuma, the holy lords of the ritual order, and I celebrate and complete my yasna to righteousness the best, and to Ahura Mazda's fire. 5. I announce and complete my yasna to Uza Ye Irena, the holy lord of the ritual order, and to Fradat Vira, and to Da Vyuma, the holy lords of the ritual order, and to Lati Ahura Napa Tapam, the son of the waters, and of the waters which Ahura Mazda made. 6. I announce and complete my yasna to Ewis Uthrima, and Aeb Ig Ea, the holy lords of the ritual order, and to Zarathus Trotema, and to him who possesses and who gives that prosperity in life which furthers all, and I celebrate and complete my yasna to the Fravacious of the saints, and to those of the women who have many sons, and to a prosperous home life, which continues without reverse throughout the year, and that might which is well shapen and stately, which strikes victoriously, Ahura made, and that victorious ascendancy which it secures. 7. And I announce, and I complete my yasna to Ushahena, the holy lord of the ritual order, and to Baregya, and Namanya, the holy lords of the ritual order, and to Sarasha, whose obedience, and blessed, endowed with blessed recompense, as a thing completed, who smites with victory, and furthers the settlements, and to Rashnu, the most just, and to Erstat, who advances the settlements, and causes them to increase. 8. And I announce and I complete my yasna to the Mahya, the monthly festivals, lords of the ritual order, and to the new and later moon, the Holy Lord of the ritual order, and of the full moon, which scatters night. 9. And I announce and complete my Yasna to the Ya-Irya yearly feasts. The Holy Lords of the ritual order, I celebrate and complete my Yasna to Ma'idyo Zaremya, the Holy Lord of the ritual order, and to Ma'idyo Shema, the Holy Lord of the ritual order, and to Pa'etish Ahya, and to Ayathrima, the advancer, and the spender of the strength of males, the Holy Lord of the ritual order, and to Ma'id Ya-Irya, the Holy Lord of the ritual order, and to Hamaspathma Edaya, the Holy Lord of the ritual order. Yea, I celebrate and complete my Yasna to the seasons, Lords of the ritual order. 10. And I announce and complete my Yasna to all those who are the 33 Lords of the ritual order, which, coming the nearest, are around about Havana, and which, as in their festivals, were inculcated by Ahura Mazda, and were promulgated by Zarathustra as the Lords of Zend Avesta, who is righteousness the best. 11. And I announce and complete my Yasna to the two, to Ahura, and to Mithra the lofty, the everlasting, and the holy, and to all the stars which are Spentamenu's creatures, and to the star Tistrya, the resplendent and glorious, and to the moon which contains the seed of the kine, and to the resplendent sun, him of the rapid steeds, the eye of Ahura Mazda, and to Mithra the providence ruler. And I celebrate and complete my Yasna to Ahura Mazda once again, as to him who rules the month, the radiant, the glorious, and to the vivacious of the saints. 12. And I announce and complete my Yasna to thee, the fire, O Ahura Mazda's son, together with all the fires, and to the good waters, even to all the waters made by Mazda, and to all the plants which Mazda made. 13. And I announce and complete my Yasna to the bounteous Mathura, the holy and effective, the revelation given against the Devas, the Zarathustrian revelation, and to the long descent of the good Mazdayistian faith. 14. And I announce and complete my Yasna to the mountain Ushe Darena, the Mazda made, with its sacred brilliance, and to all the mountains glorious with sanctity, with their abundant glory, Mazda made, and to that majestic glory Mazda made, the unconsumed glory which Mazda made, and I announce and complete my Yasna to Asha the good, the blessedness of the reward, and to Kiste, the good religious knowledge, to the good Aratha, rectitude, and to the good Razastat, persisting zeal, and to the glory and benefit which are Mazda made. 15. And I announce and complete my Yasna to the pious and good blessing of the religious man, the holy, and to the curse of wisdom, the swift and redoubted Yazad of potency to plight. 16. And I announce and complete my Yasna to these places, these lands, and to these pastures, and these abodes, with their springs of water, and to the waters, land, and plants, and to this earth, and to the yon heaven, and to the holy wind, and to the stars, moon, and sun, and to the eternal stars without beginning, and self-disposing, and to all the holy creatures, Aspenta Ma'inu, male and female, the regulators of the holy ritual order. 17. And I announce and complete my Yasna to that lofty Lord who is the ritual righteousness itself, and to the lords of the days in their duration, and of the days during daylight, to the moons, the years, and the seasons, which are the lords of the ritual order, at the time of Havana. 18. And I announce and complete my Yasna to the Fabashes of the saints, the redoubted which overwhelm the evil, to those of the saints of the ancient order, and to those next of kin, and to the Fabasha of mine own soul. 19. And I announce and complete my yasna to all the lords of the ritual order, and to all the Yazads, beneficent, who dispose of all aright, to those both heavenly and earthly, who are meet for our sacrifice and homage, because of Asha Vahista, of the ritual order, which is the best. 20. O thou, Havana, holy lord of the ritual order, and Savanga, Rapithwina, and Uza Ge Ivrina, and Ewis Ruth Rima, and Ib Ig Eya, thou that aidest life. If I have offended you, and thou, O Ushahina, holy lord of the ritual order. 21. And if I have offended thee, whether by thought or word or deed, whether by act of will or without intent, of which I earnestly make up the deficiency of this in praise of thee, and if I have caused decrease in that which is thy yasna and thy homage, I announce and celebrate to thee the more for this. 22. Yea, all lords, the greatest ones, holy lords of the ritual order, if I have not offended you by thought or word or deed, whether with my will or without intending error, I praise you now the more for this. I announce to you the more, if I have caused decrease in this which is your yasna and your praise. 23. I would confess myself a Mazda worshipper of Zarathustra's order, a foe to the Avesta, devoted to the lore of the Lord, for Havana, the holy lord of the ritual order, for his sacrifice, homage, propitiation, and praise, for Svange, and for Visya, the holy lord of the ritual order, for his sacrifice, homage, propitiation, and praise, and for the sacrifice, homage, propitiation, praise of the lords of the days and their duration, and of the days during the daylight, for those of the monthly festivals, and for those of the yearly ones, and for those of the seasons. Now, the same basic mythological framework you have with the Veda, but we have some distinctions here. We have this metaphor of the son of stuff. This stuff is two. Benedictions upon the following things. We're admitting that, there's a hierarchy out there, but God is is distinct. And Mazda made, well, everything's Mazda made, but almost the son of, daughter of, of other family language talk, but not quite. So we continue here with the comment on, what's this one called? Questions, acts of Ahura with thankfulness and devotion. Inu is suspiciously expressive as evocative, perhaps by spiritual power, would be safer. And some of the parentheses kind of put it closer to the Holy Ghost thing of the Christians, which, as you see by it not being in parentheses, is and as a generator. Oop. Okay, 24. So, who by generation? Yeah. So, verse 3 there. And the sun and the stars, their undeviating ways. Bartholomew follows the Pahlavi here as rendered by Naryoseng, putting Haveng and Starim in the genitive, which is in itself far better than to regard dat as governing two accusatives. One would, however, rather expect Haveng Staram Abvanem dat and all follow the Pahlavi here, whereby she wanes, which renders with allowable freedom. Nerevsa eti is the Pahlavi Nerevsed. Ner has Nimilate. The Persian is Kahad, and might possibly be explained as a nasalized form of an Aryan correspondent to Ba, as Nas equals As. And, well, all this stuff's about influence. So save thee these great things. And would I know the infinite vid uya, or vidve, lies here in an unusual place at the end of a sentence. It is because the word has no stress upon it. The emphasis rests on the objects which he desires to know about. The entire connection deals with knowing. It has no prominence. And in the next verse, we're talking about the clouds above. This rendering is not supported by the Pahlavi, which seems to report a rendering from some text with an approbation and a form of dar. The unsupported object might mean the airspace. See the suggestion of Bartholomew, the earth and the airspace, comparing the later Sanskrit. Once you get out of the Mesopotamian valley, the heaven for the Asians, or for the West, for the Eastern Europeans, has a particular context. So, at least is a metanomial. And so we have the Fleetus too, who are for felicity. Adverbally, felicity, however, in the abstract, as the object yoked upon, is rather too firmly drawn. I should prefer the fleet ones, the lightnings. My rendering follows the indication of another as a dual, but not as the full exegesis. One naturally supposes the yoking together of the winds and dark clouds to be meant. And then we might recall with the first verse, the lights and making the lights in the darkness. Savar yad asman avipa u and tho. And passages like the beginning of Surah 6 of the Quran, or doesn't Isaiah say that God made the light and the dark, and Genesis kind of goes into that too. So, and do these two guides for verse 5, but looks like we're going to go Nargo Sang's translating him for the whole verse. Who gave us the lights with his keen discrimination, and who the darkness? Who in his keen discrimination gave us our sleep and waking, that is, our diligence and activity? Who is he who gave us the time of Husa'ina, and the time of Rapithvana, and the method and calculation of him who discerns by means of the just rule? And the Pahlavi indicates by Stavar the increase mentioned in verse 6, and then we mention the producer of joy. So I prefer, but the indication of the Pahlavi deserves an alternative, the giver of bounty. Scar, as in car. Gius Asyau was later a common expression for a mature animal, but possibly vulgarized from its older special use here. And then there's a root ni in the middle of the whole wisdom thing. In verse 7, he adds, who made him beloved, to verse 7, because the Pahlavi translator indicates such an element in zemem. Fractiony is in abundance. The Pahlavi is kabed. Saying has prakuram. The Persian manuscript has bisyar. The thought refers back to anyaka vid yeah. And at this, I may ponder in verse 8. Haug sagaciously renders as if menda idiate, or a miswriting for penda idiate, which is in itself very possible, as in looks much like an inverted in the manuscript. So the Pahlavi records the irregularity too, from which Haug declared. So M looks like an N. Haug derived his idea, but Haug explains the word as an allusion to the 5 prayer hours of the day. I doubt very greatly whether the 5 prayer hours existed at the date of the composition of this passage. Such regulations grew up much later. The Pahlavi translator indicates elsewhere an accusative, meng, or mam, with an infinitive that I should give forth, which is, in itself, far from impossible. He was aware that meng could also equal man. Va'ed ya'e is infinitely used for vo is ya'e. And that's, we may attain. Joyfulness, increase. I do think it is necessary on the whole to postulate 2 similar words here, although Geldner's suggestion is most keen and interesting. Urvaksanguha and Urvaksukte do not favor a comparison with vrog here. The Pahlavi is indifferent. Kigun denman I le rubano zak I sapir hu ravak mani. So the ring Yusang has Uttamananda. Bartholomew has Beg Luken. Ka ta is Kena Tena. And let it thus be, or let those things happen to me. Gam means come more frequently than go. Here, literally, let us advance. And towards the whole of the verse here, 43. Myself shall I hollow, verse 9 here. Kigun denman I le dino, yos dasar I avegak, yos dasar yom. Now Yosang has katham. Oh, I guess it's not the whole verse. Edam aham yat dinem pavit rataram pavit reyame kila dinem katham pavar tam an karome, as Zarathustra is represented as sanctifying the fire. So here he would doubly sanctify the faith itself. He would hallow its name and its meaning. So, see, the fire becomes as such because of its sacred use. Pavanas hamdem uni ket runed, or pavan ham kaduki. Towards the end of the verse, which, in like abode with thine holy order, verse 10, we'll seek for thee. I cannot regard this kasura in this verse as possessing ordinary importance. The mahyau kistois is especially dependent on the following words. The Pahlavi translator hints at an important solution, which is that a pause should be made before usen, the wish of mine understanding wishes, and I wish, am wishing. Cursand homanum, I am content. If we accept a break, a possibility far too little recognized, the usen as representing a nominative singular would refer back to the meaning in mahvya or mahyau, but reading istis as irregular for istayo on account of the meter, we might regard usen as a third plural, or shall we take it as a quasi-third singular, usen being usam, n is the nasal vowel, comparing ukam as a third singular, imperative after Bartholomew's rendering, let the wish, istis, of my enlightened understanding, wish for thee, and compare asham to'e, ahura, ehma, bo'uru tem'a'is, daste, auser kovren, is a fine but bold rendering. Election is, however, included in all divine for science, and that is our note as the foremost in verse 11. But before we get to the thing about the spirits and the thing about the hate, I took upon with my spirits and the hate, let us remember that predestination means that God has the ruling role. It doesn't mean, it's not fatalist, that there's no choice involved. Certainly there's choice involved. So to deny fate is a mistake. And being fatalist is a mistake. So it's in between. God sets all the rules and knows the outcome, but we're given opportunity. We're fated with opportunity, and the source of results from those opportunities is known, but we're not, God didn't order us to make these decisions, and so the ma'in use and deva esh anga belong together. And the Pahlavi translation has as follows: that which I ask of thee, tell me aright, O Harmazd. When shall the perfect mind come to those persons? That is, when does the mind of my disciples become perfect? When shall it come to those who declare this, thy religion, O Harmazd? Grant to me before these my proclamation of the truth. Against every other spirit which is malevolent, I keep my guard. And Ya'is adverbially or possibly, with whom I question, we're into the next verse, regarding which I ask my question. And then to verse 13, who are filled with rebellion. Kiongat is, I think, simply the equivalent for ki. Angat. Huifit. How does it happen that stands free for comes? And the Pahlavi, filled with rebellion, verse 13, on the contrary, takes perenna ungo in the sense of combating. Pavan anyok shida ri pat karend is, who are opposing you through disobedience. It is far from certain that he does not indicate some improvement in text or rendering. And to the good mind acts in the soul are the counsels of holy men. Asha'e is what Gildner has in thine holy order in verse 14. The mighty destruction upon her evil believers. The Pahlavi anticipates us in the correct general sense here. It is nas, honisno. The Persian manuscript renders the Pahlavi hama vandi nist dahand I darwand. And their fell aims. Ana she seems to be regarded as an infinitive by the Pahlavi translator. Aneya tun isno, for the destruction of those deceivers, is an obvious alternative to the rendering above. A nasha. Geldner and Roth render mat as the Sanskrit mod, otherwise with complete protection, or mat as an ablative for genitive. Thou rulest over me to afford me protection. The Pahlavi affords no indication. And the Pahlavi translator, thou give, in verse 15 again, erred widely in his attempt to render the word an o kanga, as it is certain that his manuscript differed from ours often. They probably did so here. The verse alludes, beyond a question, to some expected battle in a religious war, and perhaps in a religious civil war. It is the most positive allusion to the strife of the two parties. See Yasna 31, verse 2, which has come down to us. It was a struggle concerning the religious vows or doctrines. Avais, Irvatais, Yatu, Mazda, Did Eregzo. The Pahlavi renders Vanan by good thing, explaining the sovereign power. And in verse 16, who smites with the victory. Verethremga Thwa follows the Pahlavi with Westergaard, Geldner, and Bartholomew. And having power to save us, we compare Yasna 29, verse 2, and 28, verse 3, or it may mean the promise to establish. Bartholomew says that. Kisdi, however, hardly seems to indicate an infinitive with it. It may mean a point. Compare damsu, or patni, for a better sense than houselord, also for deng pataoes. And additional light is cast by the reference of obedience on the one that should come. See Yasna 43, verse 7, 9, 11, 13, and 15. And Ahma'e, Yahma'e, Usta, Kahma'ekit is recalled by the whomsoever thou.